Welcome to The Critique. Today, we are reviewing a geopolitical commentary piece analyzing the February 2026 escalation between the U.S., Israel, and Iran, positing that a Midnight Hammer 2.0 military operation is imminent, based on the precedent set by the Venezuela intervention. Let's get to work.
I am ready. We have a draft here that is, it's vibrating with energy, packed with very specific high-level intel, but frankly, it feels like it's wearing a Halloween costume to a Security Council meeting.
That is a very vivid way to put it. As I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that the United States is essentially running the Maduro playbook on the Iranian regime.
Right, feigning diplomatic confusion while positioning assets for a decapitation strike.
Exactly. But you're right, there is a massive obstacle standing between the reader and that insight. The manuscript currently suffers from a severe dissonance between the gravity of the subject matter, nuclear conflict, and the utilization of highly colloquial internet subculture slang.
Yeah, the tone is it's wild. The writer is clearly targeting a very specific, very online demographic.
They are. The listener attempts to convey high-stakes military analysis regarding the USS Gerald Ford and nuclear proliferation while using terminology such as Sky Doritos for stealth bombers, or words like retards, cucks, and based.
Sky Doritos. I mean, that just stopped me cold.
Right. This specifically alienates the reader looking for serious geopolitical forecasting, and it undermines the credibility of the hard data presented about military movements.
I totally agree. But I want to push on this for a sec. We are living in 2026. The internet is the battlefield. Is there a risk that if we strip away the Sky Doritos and the based comments, we neuter the piece? Maybe this raw, insurgent tone is exactly what makes it readable.
I can see what you're going for there. You're asking if the style is a feature, not a bug. But let's look closely at what happens cognitively. As soon as you say Sky Dorito, you are signaling that this is entertainment or satire or a 4chan thread. You spend your credibility on the joke and you have none left for the actual intel.
I see. It's a credibility currency issue. It muddies the technical precision.
Precisely. So the suggestion here is to elevate the register of the language to match the seriousness of the content without losing the urgent insurgent voice. Retain the aggressive stance, but strip away the shitposting lexicon to ensure the analysis of the Iranian regime's stability is taken seriously.
So how do we actually do that on the page? What's a concrete example?
Well, replace the phrase Sky Dorito the F out of these retards with a description of the B-21 Raider or stealth bomber capabilities executing a decapitation strike.
Right, that sounds way more threatening. You keep the violence and the intensity, but now you sound like a threat, not a gamer.
Exactly. It shifts from internet tough guy to military strategist. And this applies to the ad hominem attacks too. Instead of referring to the UK Prime Minister as Prime Minister Queer Starmer or a flagget, focus on the strategic critique regarding the Chagos Islands and the Diego Garcia lease.
Because that is a huge point.
Diego Garcia is the unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Indian Ocean. If that's in jeopardy, the whole Midnight Hammer operation is at risk.
Yes. But it is a valid geopolitical point buried under ad hominem attacks. Because the writer prioritized a homophobic slur over the strategic analysis, the reader completely misses the point about the airfield. Don't give the reader a reason to dismiss you as a bigot when you need them to listen to you as a strategist.
That is a great catch. It's about not tripping over your own feet. And I noticed the same exact thing with the El Presidente metaphors.
The Pokemon collection bit?
Yeah, this segment about capturing one El Presidente per month, referencing Maduro and Khamenei, it frames regime change as collecting trading cards.
It trivializes it. Transform that segment from a meme-like collection metaphor into a concrete analysis of the administration's systematic maximum pressure doctrine. It is not a game, it's a kill list. That carries actual weight.
Okay, so we are putting a suit on the piece. We're cleaning up the mouth. But moving on, I really want to look at how the narrative flowed. Because even if the words were polite, I felt like I was getting whiplash between hard news and total nonsense.
That brings us to our second critique. The narrative pacing is frequently disrupted by treating debunked social media rumors with the same weight and real estate as verified military logistics.
You were talking about the Tucker Carlson section.
I am. The draft spends considerable time detailing the Tucker Carlson detained in Israel subplot, only to debunk it within the same paragraph as a misunderstanding about airport security.
I honestly wondered why that was even in there. It felt like the author was just scrolling Twitter and typing whatever they saw in real time.
It creates a boy who cried wolf dynamic that distracts from the core thesis about the inevitable war. It muddies the water between the actual military buildup and the fog of war gossip.
So should they just delete it? Because the audience for this probably does care about the Tucker news cycle.
They do, but we need to change its function. Reframe these distractions, the Tucker Carlson rumors, the Iranian AI propaganda videos, not as news events to be reported linearly, but as illustrative evidence of the chaotic information environment or the regime's desperation. Detained section. Instead of a blow-by-blow of the Daily Mail report and the U.S. Embassy denial, use it as a brief example of how high tensions are leading to misinterpretations of standard security protocols.
That is much tighter. It proves the atmosphere of war without wasting the reader's time on a non-story. And I assume the same logic applies to the Iranian AI video, the one with the ships sailing over the bridge.
Exactly. The analysis of the Iranian propaganda video is currently framed as comedy. Look how dumb they are. Rewrite this to frame it as evidence of the regime's crumbling internal capabilities and reliance on low-quality fabrication to maintain morale.
Because their propaganda arm used to be really sophisticated.
Right. So if they are relying on glitchy AI now, it reinforces the argument that the rats are leaving the ship. If they can't render a video, they probably cannot coordinate complex missile defense.
That is a very strong pivot. You turn the noise into an actual signal.
Exactly. Now let's zoom out a bit. We fixed the tone, we filtered the rumor, but what about the spine of the argument?
You mean the whole diplomatic ruse idea? The concept that Trump says I want a deal while simultaneously loading the gun.
Correct. The central argument that diplomatic overtures are actually a tactical feign to buy time from military positioning needs to be established as the structural spine of the piece rather than a recurring confusion.
Yeah. Because right now, for the first half of the draft, I wasn't sure if the writer thought Trump was confused, or lying, or just changing his mind.
The text currently oscillates between Trump wants a deal and Trump will strike, presenting them as contradictory reports that are confusing the world. The writer waits way too long to reveal their conclusion that this contradiction is intentional.
The Maduro playbook. I didn't get that aha moment until the very end.
And that is a structural failure. You cannot treat your geopolitical thesis like a plot twist. Front-load the Venezuela-Maduro precedent, the midnight hammer, as the lens through which the reader should view all subsequent information.
So state clearly at the very outset that diplomacy is the prerequisite for the strike.
Yes, move the comparison of the Venezuela-Maduro precedent operation, removing Maduro at 2:00 a.m., to the introduction. Use it to explain why Trump is telling Axios he wants a deal while simultaneously sending 25 tankers in the USS Gerald Ford to the Mediterranean.
That changes the entire reading experience. Instead of being confused by the mixed signals, the reader feels smart. They see the deal talk and think, I know what this is. This is the setup.
Precisely. You turn the reader into an insider. And when discussing the Iranian foreign minister's confusion or the rats leaving the ship, the money transfers, explicitly frame this as the intended result of the psychological operation described in the thesis, rather than just random events.
The confusion isn't a bug, it's the weapon. That makes the argument so much more robust. It turns a confusing situation into a master plan.
But to prove that master plan, you need evidence. And this draft has incredible evidence, but it is deeply buried. The piece buries its most compelling evidence, the specific logistical data regarding the US-UK military alliance, under layers of ideological commentary.
I definitely noticed that. I had to dig through 3 paragraphs of ranting about Western civilization and leftist protests just to find the data point about the 25 airborne tank. And that is a massive data. You do not put 25 tankers in the air for a photo op.
That is the so what of the entire piece. The listener has access to specific, high-value details, the dispute over Diego Garcia and Fairford Airfield, the specific movement of the USS Gerald Ford through the Strait of Gibraltar, and the 25 tankers airborne.
But currently, these hard facts are scattered everywhere.
They are scattered and treated as secondary to the ideological ranting. Group the logistical evidence together to build an irrefutable case for the inevitability of conflict. This creates a ticking clock sensation that is far more engaging than the political commentary.
So maybe build a dedicated logistics of war section.
Yes. Create a dedicated section that combines the 25 airborne tankers data with the Diego Garcia dispute. Explain why Trump's threat to use Diego Garcia despite the lease issues is a signal of imminent action, not just a political spat with the UK.
It shows the U.S. is bypassing diplomatic niceties for pure operational necessity.
Correct. Contrast the Trump says he wants a deal, quotes, directly against the USS Gerald Ford entering the Mediterranean data point. Put them right next to each other. Let the logistics speak louder than the rhetoric.
That really heightens that ticking clock feeling. He says peace, but the ships are moving. It's incredibly effective.
And for a final concrete example, highlight the specific detail about the Iranian leadership wiring money out of the country as the definitive tell that the regime believes the threat is real, distinguishing this from standard saber rattling.
Right, because regimes shout all the time, but they don't liquidate their assets unless they think the end is near. That is financial evidence of military intent.
Exactly. It is far more persuasive than any meme or insult could ever be. The raw material here is excellent, but it needs discipline. Let's summarize the actionable steps.
Right, let's recap.
First, elevate the tone. Replace internet slang with precise military and geopolitical terminology to earn authority.
Second, filter the noise. Relegate rumors like the Tucker Carlson detour and bad propaganda to supporting evidence of desperation, not main plot points.
Third, establish the structural spine. Bring the Maduro Midnight Hammer strategy immediately to the front to explain the diplomatic contradictions.
And fourth, prioritize the logistics. Center the hard data, the Diego Garcia dispute, the USS Gerald Ford, and the tanker airlifts to prove the thesis of imminent action.
We invite the listener to apply these structural and tonal shifts and resubmit the work to see if the argument for Midnight Hammer 2.0 becomes irrefutable.
I really can't wait to read the revision. If they clean this up, it could be the definitive piece on the crisis.
Agreed. Thank you for joining us for this critique.